So I was looking for a game to record today that we hadn't really done yet, and after exhausting myself in an attempt to locate one, I realized there are still so many good MMORPGs out there that nobody plays. I've done a list like this before, but with the sheer amount of MMORPGs I have played over the course of 2017, I always feel like there's more that can be said. Especially when there are so many unique ones out there that you either haven't played, you haven't tried, or you just neglected to look at because you thought nobody else was playing it. I mean, I've done that. I'm guilty of the same. I feel like we all are at one point or another in our lives. I did that with World of Warcraft originally when I wrote it off as just some cartoony looking crap that everyone overhyped for no reason other than it was the biggest thing at the time. Then it became my favorite MMORPG ever. After overcoming my initial preconceptions of the game, I gave it a try and it turned out that I loved it. That had me change my general disposition towards games people claimed were terrible, dead, not worth the time to even look at, you know. So, with it being 2018, I wanted to go over a list of MMORPGs I recommend you take a look at if you haven't already, or at the very least take another look at if you know of it but chose to instead ignore it because of popular opinion. I know you've all heard about Wildstar, you've all heard how it's a barren wasteland, you've all heard how everyone and their mother swear it isn't worth your time to try out. But I disagree. I have played Wildstar for a grand total of around 20 or more hours, and it is one of the quirkiest, entertaining MMORPGs I've had the pleasure of playing. It has great fast-paced action combat, large open areas to explore, a killer, absolutely killer graphical style, player housing, an active story to pursue, tons of mounts, an in-depth class system. It has more than most MMORPGs coming out slated for release this year, but because of a poor launch, people gave up on it instead of giving it another chance. I believe it is worth a second chance, and I believe if enough people try it out, they'll actually come to the same conclusion. If you want more opinions on this, you are more than welcome to head over to the Wildstar subreddit, and you will see that there are still plenty of people playing. Again, I know, Raiders shut down a little while ago. I am completely aware. However, I am basing this off of two separate things. One, we both played Raiders on a private server, Wild Raiders, and two, Raiders is officially relaunching. We've put a fair amount of time into Raiders because honestly, I wanted to play it way back when Perfect World Entertainment published the game, but unfortunately, I never had the opportunity to. Now, granted, it is far from anything amazing, like it's no Black Desert Online, but if you enjoy Black Desert, or more so want to play Black Desert but can't afford to purchase it, then Raiders is likely a viable alternative. It has some fairly good action combat for a free title, some great looking character customization, and a very unique combat system that allows you to actually change your overall combat style depending on what kind of weapon you pick up. This is a unique one. Silk Road is an MMORPG that is still around to this day, even after launching way back in 2005. Yes, it is 13 years old as of right now. That is absolutely insane. Silk Road Online is one of the grindiest games I've ever had the opportunity to play, outside of maybe, like, Ion. The grind is so insane, in fact, that it is pretty much all you do to level. Like, that's it. You move from monster to monster, area to area, grinding monsters to get to the next point in the game. So then, with such a basic system, why would I even bother listing it here? The fact that after 13 years it still has an active population, it utilizes an interesting real-life faction system between China and Europe, and it is still regularly updated is worth taking into consideration. It is a unique MMORPG, and I recommend, if you haven't already, get a friend and go tackle it. It's actually a really difficult game. Not to be confused with Dragona Online, Dragona Online is a tab-target fantasy MMORPG that really caught me by surprise. See, it's free to play, and it's actually a really well put together game. I don't know the size of the company that's publishing it, but the fact is that the game itself was surprisingly good. I feel like generally it's more or less your cookie-cutter MMORPG. I mean, it looks, plays, and feels like the majority of free-to-play MMORPGs that have come out over the years, but I feel like in this day and age, that's not necessarily a bad thing. With the market in the state it's in, why is it such a bad thing to have a traditional MMORPG? I don't feel it is, personally. I feel like this is a great opportunity, however, to play through an updated looking yet older feeling game that I thought was lost under the wave of grindy hack and slash MMOs coming out these days. This game used to be absolutely huge. It also used to be pay to play as well. It was definitely one of the highest quality MMORPGs at the time of its release and for several years after, but in the current age we're in, it has all but slipped into memory. Age of Conan has an incredibly high quality feel, with full professional voice acting, a large adult storyline, I guess, that takes you all around the world, dealing with a lot of dark, often taboo subjects. Some great quality combat, and engaging world filled with NPCs that genuinely feel much more alive than most MMORPGs do these days. I'm shocked that the game is so unpopulated when it is mostly free to play these days. The graphics, the gameplay, and the overall feel of the game is absolutely fantastic, and I feel like if you haven't played it yet, you are missing out. This one is, it's very weird. It's not a Japanese MMORPG, but it plays like a traditional anime would. It is by far one of the most interesting games I have played. It's, I'm not even really sure how to put this. It feels like a mixture of a fantasy game thrown into real life. Since you're a school student and your goal is to compete against other schools, but, I mean, you have things like magic and it's all just a really, really strange mess, but boy is it addicting. And to make things weirder, you have this really strange, realistic graphical style associated with it that drives the creepiness factor home. Also known as Blade and Soul's ugly older brother, Swordsman is a martial arts MMORPG that came out before Blade and Soul that attempted to sate people's need for a good Eastern MMO. Following a storyline fairly reminiscent to Blade and Soul's, a combat style, more tab target and less action, and a generally similar feeling world to Blade and Soul, Swordsman is actually a fairly good game and all. It is story driven, which is always a plus for me. It is very fast, there is voice acting in the game, albeit in Chinese, a fairly decent character creator, and tons more for people interested in something more, Asian-inspired than Blade and Soul's over-the-top fantasy-style game. Anyone that knows me should know that this game would be in here. It is one of the most sexualized MMORPGs in creation, and I mean it. They offer a pack that actually allows you to completely remove all of your clothes and run around 100% nude. Yes! It is that sexualized. Scarlet Blade offers you a unique combat system, a fairly action-oriented combat system, along with an interesting open world similar to Blade and Soul's. Admittedly, though, for a game as hyper-sexualized as Scarlet Blade, the character creator doesn't really offer much in the way of customization. But the game itself offers some fun sci-fi features, such as giant boobs, a giant mech that you get to pilot and take into combat, and some really nasty-looking monsters as well. Like, seriously, gross-ass looking monsters. A game with one of the most interesting, engaging, unique combat systems of all time. I'm not even kidding. You build a party that you take into battle, and you control each party member. It isn't traditional in any sense of the word. You have to watch and see exactly how strange this combat is to fully appreciate it. Like, you legit, you go out into the world, and you recruit new party members to join your squad. It's quite something to play around with. It definitely requires the use of tactics, unlike most MMOs these days. Add on to that the fact that you have one of the most beautiful graphical styles and eras in actual history as the setting for this game, and you have yourself a new home. I feel like I'm almost listing off each and every MMORPG that has a unique combat system at this point, but this, like Granado Espada, really deserves a mention, even if just for the combat alone. The combat is turn-based, just like in old JRPGs. You, like in Granado Espada, go around the world recruiting various party members of differing classes to complement your team. Each party member has their own unique abilities and weaknesses and can make or break your team, especially if you have your party formation set up incorrectly. Unlike Granado Espada, though, Atlantica is much more Eastern-feeling game, having things like samurai as party members instead, which is admittedly a nice difference. If you have never heard of this one, well, then now you have. This one is one of my favorite, older, obscure MMORPGs, as honestly, the sheer amount of classes you have to choose from and the races you are given to play as is fantastic. Additionally, each race has their own unique starting location, which to me is always a sign of great diversity and leveling. The combat is tab target, so it's nothing fancy, but the character models and the fact that you have the ability to put stat points into whichever stat you want has and always will be appealing to me. I absolutely love being able to craft my own character the way I want to. I mean, you guys can't tell me it's not fun running around as a fully strength-oriented mage, right? So there's a few MMORPGs I am sure you haven't checked listed right here. Multiple of them are worth checking out. You're more than likely to find or at least enjoy one of them as well. Or, then again, at the very least, have a fun, unique experience with the different combat found in each game. Let me know whether or not you know of any unique MMORPGs people no longer play, talk about, or even know about below.
We fell out of love like shooting stars, came crashing down.